Hello, welcome back to Buckle Up. My name is Rob Wilson and this is the new Citroen C3, and today I'm going to find out if it's any good. But before we drive it, let's have a quick look around the outside, and we'll start as we normally do at the front, where, I really just love how funky and mad Citroen is back, guys, and I'm here for it. We've got the old new badge, because this is the new Citroen badge, but is emulating that of the 1920s and 30s cars that Citroen used to make. We've got these new headlights, which are part headlight here, and then the daytime running light comes along here, and it looks really funky. We've got some aero bits going on down here in the front bumper with some little red accents, again, just a bit of colour. This colour as well. This is the standard colour on the car. You don't have to pay any money, and I think it's great. But like a powder blue, fantastic. It is actually quite a chunky, upright design, sort of like a mini SUV. And we'll see, actually, if that continues down the side. And indeed it does, but we'll start off with these 17-inch alloy wheels. They are standard across the range. You've got the black cladding around the wheel arches. We've got some black mirror caps, black door handles, as well as these black roof rails. So again, this is where I see it leaning into that mini SUV category. We've got a white roof, so this is a two-tone car. That is an option you can select, and you'll notice we have 5 doors as well, so that should make getting in and out a bit easier. But let's go and have a look at the back, because here we see some more of that chunky black cladding. Again, I think leaning into the off-roady sort of styling elements. We've got these chunky rear tail lights, which again are emulating those front headlights with the sort of backwards C pattern, or the C pattern on that side. Massive Citroen badge here in the middle, and you have this black bar which connects the rear lights to this central badge, and I think that's trying to sort of do the whole fashionable light bar thing without actually doing it, because those are expensive, and Citroen want to make this car as cheap as possible. You've got a little spoiler on top here, rear wiper, and then just simple badge denotion there. But let's open up the boot, because we've got 310 litres in here, or if we fold the seats down, that goes up to 1,168 litres. And you can fold those seats in a 60-40 fashion as well, if you want to. Under the boot floor, you will find a spare wheel and your tool kit. Not often that you see a spare wheel, but there is one there. We have some tie down hooks on the 4 corners, and we do have a little light in here, but we don't have things like a 12-volt socket, so it's missing maybe that one thing. There's actually a couple of hooks as well, I missed those. But yes, it is a reasonably practical shape. There is a bit of a lip, obviously, to get stuff over, but you find that in a lot of cars in this class. But what I think I'll do now is hop in those back seats and see how well I fit. Okay, so here in the back seats, and I'll start by talking about the amount of room that I have back here, because I am 6'2" or 188 centimeters tall, and this driver's seat is currently set up in my driving position. And as you can see, while there isn't loads of room, there is a surprisingly good amount of room, because these cutouts in the back of the front seats go in quite a lot. So I can actually tuck my knees in there, and I'm not really that uncomfortable. And same for footroom. The seat is mounted quite high, so I can tuck my feet under there quite nicely indeed. And if I sit all the way up straight, my head doesn't even touch the roof, which is unheard of, quite frankly. So that's really impressive for a car of this size. And yes, I've got a middle seat here, which is smaller and raised, but it's not that bad if you had to use it for emergencies. I wouldn't really recommend being 3 up in the back here, because there is a bit of a hump in the floor there, so that footroom that I just described as very generous would very quickly deplete if someone else was wanting to put their feet in it. We don't have a central armrest here in the back, but we do have door pockets which would fit 1 bottle of water in each side. And then in the center here, we've got 2 USB-Cs and a 12-volt socket on the back of this center console. Also worth noting that we have Isofix on both of these outer seats, and they're behind zips, not plastic covers that you will lose, so that's a good thing. And then generally materials, hard plastics on the top of the doors there. The seat fabric is all right, and this one's got the two-tone interior as well, so you can option this light interior or just have black. But personally, I'd recommend going for this lighter interior because it just helps lift the cabin a bit. You get some soft touch bits on the armrest. You got Lecky windows here in the back. There are some little tags sewn onto the armrests. On that side it says feel good, and on this side it says be happy. So let's see if that influences my conclusion to this video. It is also worth noting that we've got two pockets on the back of the seat. So we've got one where you'd expect, and then a higher up one, I suspect, for popping your phone in. So if you've got kids in the back here, they've got plenty of places to charge and store their devices. But let's head up front now and see what's going on there. Right, okay then, so up here we've got a very funky interior indeed. I think I'm going to start by talking about the steering wheel, which isn't a wheel because it's not round. It's sort of a rectangle, a little bit similar to the Peugeot products where they have the Peugeot i cockpit thing where your dials are actually above the top of the steering wheel. However, this is a much better system in my opinion because your screens are actually mounted just below the window line here, so you have a much clearer view of where they are. They are much smaller screens than you would see on a Peugeot i cockpit system, but I have all of the relevant information in there that I need, and I can see them in my seating position. In those Peugeots, for some reason, tall people can't have the steering wheel, or not wheel, in a place that makes it comfortable for them to sit and to be able to see the dials. This system works. On my steering rectangle, on the left-hand side, I've got controls for my cruise control. That is just a speed limiter setup. It's not adaptive. Of course, we're at the bottom end of the price scale here. And then on the right-hand side, we've got your volume controls and your phone controls and that sort of radio stuff that's going on there. Then in the center we have your infotainment screen, which is actually fairly decent size and fairly responsive. The important thing for most people is that you can connect your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto up to it on both of the spec levels available on this car. I'll come back to that later on. The only difference is in this top spec car, you get inbuilt navigation in this system if you really want to use it. But quite frankly, I think most people will just be hooking up their phone and using Google Maps or Waze or whatever to direct themselves. Now, it's also probably worth mentioning that we've got proper physical climate controls below these central air vents here. We've got the ability to change up and down the temperature on this one and fan speed. This top spec car, as standard, gets heated front seats, a heated steering wheel and a heated windscreen, which is actually quite an important thing here in the UK because that just means that when it is horrible and miserable and icy, it's very quick to clear your front windscreen on those mornings when all you really want to do is get out on the road as quickly as possible rather than sitting in your freezing car. But there you go. We've also got a USB-C port up here, and this dashboard is really interesting because it's sort of tiered. We've got obviously the driver information screens up here, but then this is sort of like a giant tray up here. I'm not sure if you put something in there how stable it would be and if it would slide around, but I wouldn't necessarily want to put anything in there. You do have another shelf here, but again, not sure you'd want to stick anything on there. Of course, you do have a glove box, but because this car is French, it is only half of one because they can't be bothered to move the fuse box to the correct side of the car for us. There is also a nice little diagram to remind you of the iconic cars that Citroen have made. Then we've got a shelf down here in the middle, which is the perfect place to pop your phone. We've got two cup holders here, and the bottle of water that fits in the door pockets also fits nicely in those as well. Then, because this is the top spec car, it comes with this automatic. So you've got a shifter, which you'll be familiar with if you've ever been in any form of Stellantis car because they all use that. Electronic handbrake, again on this top spec hybrid version. If you go for the pure petrol one, you get a physical manual handbrake, another USB-C hidden in that little cubby, and if I lift up this armrest, it's actually quite deep, it's just very narrow, so you wouldn't really get all that much in there. But my favourite button in the whole cabin is actually this one to the right of the steering wheel, which turns off the annoying speed recognition sign with just the long press of a button, so you don't have to go into the screen to do any of that nonsense like you do in a lot of other cars. And yeah, materials again, fairly cheap feeling plastics, but it's lightened up with this bit of fabric that they've stuck on the dashboard, and these seats again with the two-tone, you know, just helps lift the cabin. And we still have the be cool and have fun little flaps stitched into the armrests here. So with that in mind, let's go and drive it. Right, okay then, so driving the Citroen C3, and I guess I'll start by talking about the stats and what sort of trim levels you can get on this car. So, nice and simple, you have a choice of two trims. They are called Plus and Max. Now, as I've mentioned, this is the top spec Max version, and this one is only available with the top spec 1.2 petrol turbo hybrid setup. So you get 110 combined horsepower between the engine and the hybrid bits. You get 205 Newton meters of torque from the petrol engine, and then you get an additional 52 Newton meters of torque in a sort of boost capacity from that hybrid setup. Now on the entry-level Plus, you can either spec this engine or you can spec this engine without the hybrid element. So it's just a Bogo 1.2 turbo with a manual as well. So that's also worth noting. You can only get a manual on that basic pure petrol engine in the entry-level car. So because you get a little bit extra power and torque in this hybrid version, you can do 0 to 60 in 9.8 seconds, and that's a little bit faster obviously than the basic pure petrol one, because that can do it in 10.6 seconds. Both cars have a top speed of 99 miles an hour. Way, isn't that fast? But obviously that doesn't matter in this car. What you're probably more interested in is fuel economy, and obviously if you go for the hybrid, it is a little bit more fuel efficient on those WLTP tests. So in this hybrid you get a WLTP figure of 56.2 miles to the gallon versus 52 in the normal petrol. So not really that big of a difference, about 4 miles to the gallon. But over the past 320 miles, I can tell you that this car has averaged 42.8 miles to the gallon. So a bit below what is claimed, but still fairly decent for a little city runabout. The other place where the hybrid makes a bigger difference is in CO2 produced from the back. So you get 114 grams of CO2 per kilometre in the hybrid versus 128 in the normal petrol flavour. So if you are eco-conscious, you might want to check out the hybrid version. There is obviously also a fully electric version, but we'll leave that for when we test that car because they are quite different. So let's talk about pricing then, because this car starts lower spec with the basic petrol engine at £18,800 on the road. Step up to the hybrid version of the entry-level trim, and then it becomes £20,600. Step up again to this top spec car with the hybrid engine, and the price goes up again to £22,300. But all in all, still very reasonable. I know that that might sound like a lot to certain people, but you have to remember that things have moved on since you were reading Parker's Guide in 2004, and prices have changed on cars. I don't care if you say, oh, well, do you remember when you used to be able to get a Dacia Sandero for £7,000 or £6,000? Yes, I do, but we don't live in those times anymore. And quite frankly, you didn't get any of this equipment on a Dacia Sandero when they first came out. It is genuinely amazing what small city cars, the cheap small city cars, now offer as standard equipment, or as standard equipment as you move up the levels. Really, you can only pick the colour and a couple of other bits on this. There's not really that many optional extras. And then in terms of how this car drives, well, it's like any other city car really. It's not the fastest in the world. The gearbox is reasonably smooth actually. It's a 6-speed dual clutch. It's, you know, we're not in that era anymore where you've got those horrible automated manuals that you used to have in this class of car. Things have moved on. The car is more grown up. It feels fairly solid. It doesn't get blown around too much on a motorway when you go past a lorry. The steering is light, but that's a good thing if you're going to be using it mostly around town. And the turning circle is really good as well, just 10.6 meters. And the suspension is reasonably compliant. Yes, it does make some noise when you go over bigger potholes and bumps and stuff, but it's not bad at all really for this class of car. And while it's not massively relevant to this kind of car, the steering feel and that sort of stuff, the handling isn't all that bad at all really. It's going to be absolutely fine if you do have to venture onto a country road. It's just not going to give you that much in the way of any feedback, but no car in this class does, unless you're looking at something like a warm hatch, you know, like a mini JCW or whatever. In this size class, yes, granted, there are cars that can drive better than this, but for this entry-level, basic, cheap, end-of-the-scale sort of vehicle, no, you're not getting a sports car. We all know that, and yeah, it drives really rather pleasantly, to be honest. So I think what I'll do now is I'll pull over and I'll give you a bit of a conclusion. Okay then, so that is the C3 tested. So what am I thinking? Well, I think what's really incredible is just how much the small Supermini that is now, I know it's not cheap, but it is cheap in terms of relatively compared to all other cars, has come on. There's loads of equipment on this car. It looks excellent. I really like how it looks. It's so funky and different and quite cool. I think, you know, if you just want a small runabout for the city that has the hybrid technology, you can get it as an EV if you want it, or petrol. You know, it's catering to all audiences, and there's, you know, enough space inside for whoever you want to carry around with you. The boot's decent. I'm so happy that the small car lives on a little bit, at least for the time being. And this is a really good effort by Citroen and Stellantis generally. But yes, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like, comment down below and let me know your thoughts on the C3. But most importantly, please do subscribe to the Buckle Up channel and ding the notification bell so you never miss one of our uploads. If you want to support what we do, you can head on down to the description where we've got links to our social media. You can become a channel member, or you can buy some of our branded merch. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.